Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome back from the holiday break. Hope everyone had a good time off and enjoyed some downtime without a couple hundred pages of reading every night. It's my pleasure to go ahead and introduce to you our first speaker in Wood Auditorium for LEDX. I'm going to introduce to you today Mr. Andy Christiansen. He's the co-founder and CEO of Capital 7. He's a leadership consultant who's worked with organizations such as Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, Newell Rubbermaid, the Mattress Firm, Label Live, and Northwestern Mutual. Before consulting, Andy worked in the beverage industry and invented actually the first ever zero-calorie fruit-flavored spring water, Fruit 2.0. You may have heard of this. It's done quite well. Another fun fact about Andy before he takes the stage, he's actually an adventure hiker and likes to get in at least a 14er a year, which I've learned is actually a 14,000-foot mountain. Next on his agenda is Mount Whitney. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mr. Andy Christiansen.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, you guys have been on break. Your brains, how you feeling? We engaged? Not yet? We're getting there? All right. I like it. Hey, so I'm just curious, how many for Georgia, national championship? Alabama? All right, I'm from Atlanta, so you probably know where I'm going. Sorry to the Alabama fans, but you guys have enough championships. Hey, would you guys all do me a favor, and everybody just stand up very briefly, just everybody to your feet. I want us to congratulate one another in a moment for what appears to be 2017 was really a great year as peacekeeping goes, right? I mean, for the most part. And those of you that are in business, there's a pretty good economy last year. So how about a round of applause for everyone here? All right. And if you're 35 and older, please sit down, because I know you're getting tired. All right, 30, 35, 34 and younger, please stay standing. Come on, no cheating. 34 and younger. 34 and younger. Look around, that's about 20% of the room. All right? Hey, congratulations to our future leaders. Let's give them a round of applause. Right here. And you can be seated unless you're 22 and younger. Okay, so those were our millennials. Do we not have any centennials that are 22 years and younger? Really? Wayne, you're 22? No? Okay. So, we're going to talk about millennials and centennials. Day in the life of a millennial. Wakes up in Soho, New York. He has 5 roommates. And he just got from his parents, 25 years old, a hoverboard. And it's springtime, so he's going to go off to work over in Tribeca. Man bun flailing behind him, navigating some foot traffic. He has to pull over and take a puff on his vape, his e-cigarette. And he's on his way to Tribeca Roasters to get a flat white. That's a modern coffee, for those of you that don't know what flat white is. And before he gets there, he has a sharp memory shock in his brain that he can't go to work today because he has not finished binge watching the second half of the second season of Stranger Things. And so he gets his flat white, sips it down, eats a biscuit, and back home he goes to complete something that's very, very important to him. What do you make of that? Irresponsible or responsible? To a millennial, work-life balance is extraordinarily important. But they also know they need to work to pay the rent because, you know, it's expensive in New York City. So that is what a lot of us look at with millennials, and we call them lazy, entitled, lacking in social skills. They are to blame, many people think, for the downfall of some of our economy right now. Like Applebee's has cut their stores in half. And they blame millennials because millennials want to eat more organic, more homegrown food. Okay? Right or wrong, good or bad, we don't know. But lazy, entitled, and lacking social skills, is it accurate? Is it inaccurate? Does it offend anyone? Are some of you going, yep, that's what they are? So are there some facts? You know, 42% of millennials still live with their parents. Millennials are 34, roughly 35 to 23 years old, okay? And over half of them that are employed feel like they should get a promotion within the first 2 years, whether they deserve it or not. Maybe a little outgrowth from all the participation trophies that every kid gets, even if they're a bench warmer. I don't know. And in terms of lacking social skills, do you know that the average millennial, how many hours a day? 6 on their smartphone, smart device. That's over 1/3 of awoken hours they're on their phones. So what are we to do if millennials are lazy, entitled, and lacking social skills? Are we screwed? I work mostly with millennials with the work I do, and I hear this all the time. You know, we're screwed. These guys are not going to take us to the promised land. Because if we get attacked by Russia or China, will they fight? I know you in this room will, right? That are in active duty. But what about the rest of our culture? What are we going to do? Will they expect mom and dad to rescue them and fight for them? Right? Will they have the social skills to negotiate out of a bad problem? Or maybe they get us into a bad problem because they don't know when to stop talking about things that they shouldn't talk about. I mean, really, are we screwed? So I thought I'd give you a picture, you know, it speaks 1,000 words, and see if you can relate to this, because I think this generation is going to take us to a bad place. Look at them just sitting around. She's looking at some iPad. I don't know. They're going to these festivals. They're lazy, these people, this generation. Does that look entitled to you? Mom and dad sending them money, not a care in the world. Yeah? Lacking social skills? How about this guy or gal? How to win friends and influence people. Depends on what you're trying to win and influence, huh? So what do you think? Is this generation bad news? You see what I did there? You know, this generation, Woodstock, this is 1969. These are boomers. And the things that were said about them were horrific. They're going to run us to ruin. They are not going to fight. They're war protesters. All kinds of bad things. I could put quote after quote after quote. They call this the me generation. And they call millennials the me generation. Interesting. So do you see the irony and the dilemma? We'll get into that a little bit more. Just a couple statements that I find interesting. Before you go and criticize the younger generation, just remember who raised them. Okay? And self-criticism or criticism is just a form of self-boasting. Be careful. Be careful that we're not trying to beat up the pilot that's flying the ship, the bird that we're on. Right? Millennials are our future. So we've got to figure out, are they bad news? Are you guys, or are you not? And if you are, we've got to adjust. And if you're not, we better start supporting you and equipping you instead of just criticizing. Right? I love my friend Wayne. Wayne the Bear Kinsel says, I heard this last night, he said, we've got to stop calling them out and start calling them up. We could just close right there and just go do it. But let me give you a little bit more to go on. All right? Wouldn't that be great? Like, that was awesome. It was like 7 minutes. Super TED Talk, LEDX. One of my favorite thought leaders you'll hear this afternoon, and you all should listen to General Quast. He's amazing. He says this generation is living in some of the most dangerous times for the Republic. Right? What we have worked so hard to maintain and are spreading around the world could be lost in a generation if, and I like what he also says, if we've not given them, this generation, let's call it millennials and centennials that stood at the end, are we giving them the space to tinker, explore, innovate, and keep up with the changes around our world? Right? Are we supporting you guys to the degree you need it? I believe this, if you want to know my opinion. Millennials don't suck. You're just old. I mean, you remember when you were growing up, that neighbor, this generation. I mean, I remember that neighbor, hundreds of them. They're always complaining about the next generation. And so were the people older than them when they were kids. It's just what we do. So is it really a fouled up generation, or it's just 5 to 10% and every generation has it? Right? I showed you the boomers. They had their 5 to 10%. You know, divorce rate was 25% until boomers got married, and it's at 50, and it's hovered there ever since. One generation. So why are we beating up so much on millennials? Right? I could get into drug use and all kinds of stuff because they were a little bit older than me, and I remember hearing all this crap going, I don't want to be one of them. Glad I'm a baby buster. And now I've kind of gotten looped into them, so I don't know. But hey, it's again only 5 to 10%. So what are we saying? Let's get busy not focusing on the 5 to 10, but the 95%. Fair enough? Stop hurting. We need to start helping. So Andy, what do you suggest? I'm glad you asked. I think first we have to understand this age that we're in. You've heard that we're in an information age, right? But are we also in a misinformation age? And I've been saying this way before fake news, because that almost seems like it's political. But isn't it true? If information goes up, misinformation is just going to go up, right? It's an opportunity to catalyze on something. How about this? 35,000 decisions you and I make every day, minor ones to major ones. Whoa, that's heavy duty. So what do we do with that? I believe, based on what we all have to do, especially with millennials, we've lost some time, and we need to catch up. So let me give you a few things I think will help. I want to just tell you a quick story. I got invited to go to Mildenhall, and I didn't know it at the time, but it was on my bucket list. It just wasn't on there. But once I went and then came back home, I'm like, I'm crossing out number 4, and that's going in number 4 and checking it off. It was an incredible experience. One of the things I remember the most was I got asked if I wanted to go up in a flight. Is that a trick question? I mean, I'm adventurous. I climb these mountains. I love it. And so I went up, and those of you that have done this, it's really amazing. I got up at 2:30 in the morning to get into pre-check, pre-flight, whatever you guys call that, at like 4 in the morning. And then we go do the event, the flight, and then we come back and do post-flight. And I'm sitting there before we went up in the plane in pre-brief, and there's 3 25-year-olds. And I'm looking around going, where's the boss? Because I'm thinking, we're about to go in an airplane. Certainly someone's not giving you guys the key to that multi-million-dollar bird. There must be somebody a little bit older. Nope. I kept looking at the door, and then finally we go outside. We're walking up to the plane, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that person's in the plane. They're probably the pilot. They don't need to go through pre-brief. So I see this look like a 19-year-old young woman walks up in uniform. Well, I don't think that's the boss. It could be, but she's the boom operator. So I'm like, she's even younger. I'm in trouble. I don't know if I feel safe. And I got to tell you, lazy, entitled, and lacking social skills, these 4 were up at dark 30 in the morning. They're not lazy. Taking ownership of a multi-million-dollar plane, that's not entitled. They're leading well. And their social skills, I'm up in the plane, and the pilot puts it on cruise. That's what I love about the military. You guys are so honoring. He turns around and says, reaches into his backpack, pulls out a book, pulls out a pen, and he looks at me. He says, I get choked up just thinking about it. But he looks at me and he says, sir, would you sign your book for me? Huh? I mean, social skills. I want these guys running the world, running our country. They're awesome. Millennials. Hello. I know you guys already know they're awesome here, but we have to spread this out. We have to give the gift that keeps on giving, which I believe is mentoring. Getting with a person one-to-one, eyeball to eyeball. It could even be ear to ear. And transferring what you know so well to someone else. Or more importantly, just finding out what's important to them and helping them achieve it. Right? It's simple. But one thing that gets in the way before we get into practical tools is this FAE. I know you guys like acronyms, so here you go. Everything's an acronym in the military. Fundamental attribution error. Well, that sounds pretty boring. It is kind of boring. But it's true. This is what we do. Homer's got it figured out. Everyone's stupid except me. You ever see yourself doing this? I know I do it. If I do something wrong, I minimize it. Like, well, only happens every so often. If I trip on the sidewalk, I look down, I blame the sidewalk. It wasn't me. I see you trip, I kind of go, idiot. You don't have any balance? What's wrong with you? And that's kind of the same thing. We with ourselves, we minimize what we're bad at and we maximize what we're good at. But what's the point? We look at the other generation, we go, they're whack. They're never going to amount to anything. We've got to stop that. It's not healthy, right? Quit calling them out, start calling them up. It's a beautiful thing to do. Not just think about, but pick someone. Start thinking of someone right now that you can go mentor. Or if you don't want a mentor, I know this is always, oh, I want a mentor. Great, go find one. How many people in the world? 7 billion? That's a lot. Go find one. I'll give you a story in a minute, how you can do it. So, outdated policies, or is this a generational problem? That's really the question. We've got to answer this because we have a whole generation in the balance. It seems like everybody wants to beat up on. And I'm looping you Centennials, the Centennials 22 years and younger, into the Millennials because that's what we all do at this point. But they will become their own generation. So can we just collectively do a reboot for a few minutes? Let's just take a fresh look at the future of our world, the future of our industry. For some of you, these are your children. Some of you, this is you. We need a reboot. What's this generation really like? Age 23 to roughly 35. 71 million population. It's the largest generation that's ever walked the planet. They are a force. This is not a hurricane dying out in the ocean. This eye wall's making landfall, and it's already done so in the military. It's about to do it in the business world. And what they want, sorry to stereotype you guys so much, but the typical millennial wants real stuff. They're sick of, if you heard Todd Henry, he was saying it, right? You can't overpromise and underdeliver. You guys will signal that in an instant and call it out. You will quit jobs. You will leave the military on day one of your 6th year completion and say, I am done with this. If we don't give you real things, especially real leadership. And I will apologize for my generation. We have not served you as well as we could or should. And I hope today will help a few of us start to right size, right? We call it level set. I would say let's level up. Let's level up a little bit, go beyond, and then we get to level. So how about the Centennials? How are they different? Age 22 and younger. Do you know at Chick-fil-A, anybody a Chick-fil-A fan? Yeah? Good chicken biscuit? The largest population of employees at Chick-fil-A, right here, 22 and younger. Largest population of employees. So they are already a force to be reckoned with. Get ready, because they're 80 million. They're going to be bigger than millennials, right? So you remember that hurricane coming and it hits landfall, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's a bigger one coming? Oh crap. We've got to be ready for this. We owe it to them to give them the best of our leadership abilities. So some facts. Andy, do you have any facts to back this up? Well, a couple. I don't want to bore you with too many. But are they lazy? No. They're the most educated generation that's ever lived, if you blend them both together, millennials and centennials. First time ever, there's more with college degrees than without, over 50%. It's never happened before. And we think that they're entitled. It's because Generation Y is in the alphabet, but they're also Y is in the question. Why? And you know, I hear people on exit interviews when a millennial quits, I like to walk in and say, hey, so what happened? Why did she quit? Oh man, they're always asking why. And we just got fed up with it. I don't know if we fired them or they just quit. I said, well, did you answer their questions? Oh, they're all crazy questions. Like what? Well, like what our mission is here in the company. There's a plaque up front with the mission statement on it. Okay, tell me what it says. Well, I don't know what it says, but it's up front on the plaque. Come on, really? They just want to know why you exist. It's foundational. And this whole thing about lacking social skills. Do you see all these restaurants forming up? Like grill and social, bourbon bar and social. They're the most social generation that's been around a long time. Why? Because they're on this all the time, connecting, and when they do get together, they're already updated. They already know what's going on. Boomers get together, hey, so what do you think of the weather? Fair and cloudy? Yeah, getting warmer. They'll go 10 minutes talking about the weather. I'm like, come on, get to something meaningful. So where do we go with this? I don't know if you know this fact, but 78% of active duty, millennials under the age of 35 and centennials. 78, almost 80% of active duty, millennials and centennials. Right? So you're a minority if you're over 35. And in the business world, it's 30% less. In other words, 48%. It hasn't gotten to critical mass yet. So you guys are leading again, whether you know it or not. And don't let us down, because you guys have to figure this out, because we're going to follow in the business world. Intentionality is what I'm suggesting you need. If you need to find a mentor, and we all need a few, be intentional. Don't wait for that person to find you. Go find them. On the way out, I'm going to hand you a card. We're going to hand you cards at the door about how to have these one-to-one meetings. Call it mentoring, call it wingman, call it friend-tor, call it advisor, mastermind group, band of brothers, inner circle. I mean, put something on it that makes you, I want to get one of those. I was talking to a 22-year-old this week, and he called up, he wanted some advice. He's at school up the road. And he said, how do I get in one of those? I said, honestly, the best way? Start one. I never thought of that. Yeah, you go looking for something that doesn't exist, make it. You guys are go-getters. Start something. Be intentional. Okay, can you do that? So let's bring it home. Let's bring it back to work, because that's where we're all living, right? We either have teams of people we're managing, or we will when we leave here, or you're at least managing your own life. But see if you can score well. I'm going to give you 10 critical indicators of Work 3.0, which another term for that is a millennial workplace. And I believe millennials are just holding our feet to the fire. My opinion is all 10 of these, they've always been important. So I want to see how you score. Score yourself as I run through these, because this is the visual that I hope we would get to, where we're all working together toward the same goal. So running through, they want a paycheck, not as much. They want compelling purpose. Don't we all want that? In other words, they'll leave a job and make $5,000 less, and someone will say, why'd you quit your job? Man, I get this bigger purpose I'm going toward. My heart's full. It used to be you'd leave a job to get a better paycheck, and people high-five you. It's just different, right? But I think we should all have this. So let's run through these rather quickly. A boss or a mentor? Does anybody really want a boss? And if that's the case, why are you bossing so hard? Be a mentor. It doesn't mean you have to be all the time, right? Command and control is kind of the opposite of some of this. Is it wrong to be command and control? Nope. I'm not saying that. Wartime and crisis, you better be command and control. We need that. But we got a lot of other time where we're trying to build trust, and that's what Todd just taught us about. If you were in that session, it's all about trust. This is the best and fastest way to get there. Offer to mentor someone. Again, if you want to know how to do it, I'm going to give you a handout on the way out. Make it simple. How about micromanaging? Anybody like to be micromanaged? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. No. We're independent Americans, or whatever country you're from, right? We appreciate freedom. That's why we're here. Freedom. Doesn't mean there's no rules, but have some freedom. My goodness. It's a country based on freedom. Why in the work world all of a sudden we shut that down? I know it's military. We need processes and systems. I get that. But have some degree of freedom somewhere. How about 9 to 5 or flexible work hours? They want some flexibility. I don't know how you're going to do that. You're smart people. Figure it out. Ask them. People say, well, how do I figure this out? Put 5 of them in a room and ask them. Well, that's ingenious. No, it's just simple. Okay? So now we're at 5. How are you doing on scores? You choose the employee or they choose you. This is big in the business world. People, this rocks their world. Like, what do you mean they choose us? Yeah. They're going to look at 3, 4 companies. Why should they work for you? Are you 0 for 5, 5 for 5? Let's keep going. As you lead them, do you tell them or do you challenge them? Which do you prefer? Do you like to be told what to do? Now, clarity is a different issue, but how you get clarity to people. All right? Challenge them. They're not weak. You know what we do with millennials? 2 extremes. This is what I see. Millennials do that. This is how they hate to be led. You either boss them hard and tell them what to do all the time, and then when you realize that doesn't work, because it doesn't most of the time, then we throw caution to the wind, and we just go, well, what all do you guys want? We'll give you anything you want. Beanbag chairs, ping pong, free snacks in the break room. What do you need? Well, they don't want either of those. They want to be heard, and they want to build their own unique culture. So let them develop it. With all these college degrees, we've got to start letting the next generation think with us. So, build the company brand or help them build their brand. Well, I don't think that's right. They should just build their brand. Well, wait a minute. You did it. You just called it something different. It was called building your resume 20 years ago. Just different name. Get on board, okay? Get up to speed with this generation, because they're not going away, and it's only going to get crazier with the Centennials. Let this be your wake-up call. How about annual performance reviews? Once a year, I'm going to find out if I'm a good worker. This doesn't even make sense. Millennials love ongoing feedback. So schedule something maybe once a week. I'd go every day for a while till they stop asking. Ongoing. And the last one, we're so about return on investment. I don't know what it's like necessarily in your worlds, in active duty. I'm sure the return on investment is something a little more than just money. It's mission. But what about return on life? How many conversations are you having with people that you work with, and you're asking questions like, hey, tell me what's really important to you outside of work? And do you have enough trust built up with that person where they will actually tell you what they think? So how'd you score? Anybody 10 for 10? If you're 0 for 4, you've got what's called a fixed mindset. Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset, and she talks about growth mindset. You want to be able to grow and adapt. The things that you appreciated when you were under 35 years old, if you're over 35. You were all about growth. Probably. So do you have any work to do to get from 2.0 to 3.0? This is a thing, by the way, work 3.0. I didn't make it up. Get there, get there. What's this picture all about? These are some trench soldiers, I guess, World War I. It didn't signify any wartime historians here. You might know what it is. These guys are eating. Master the obvious. Have you heard of the concept, leaders eat last? I just was curious if you could tell me what that means. Does that mean that we do that out of bravado? Because then we actually look better? Since I'm the leader, I'm going to eat last. You know, you lowly people eat first. That's not what it's about, is it? Or is it about this word? Is that what it's about? Those that you honor will honor you. So I think the Marines started doing this first, where they'd have the soldiers, you know, the enlisted on up, eat first. Are we honoring this generation? If you're millennials, are you honoring your own generation? Because sometimes you beat up on your own kind worse than anyone else out here. Of course not you. You know, it's the other millennials. Yeah. I think we need to get back to this and meeting with a person one-to-one and asking what their agenda is, what's important to them. How can I help you? Whether you're a millennial or you're older, it doesn't matter. Everybody in this room qualifies to do something that's honoring to other people. Now, just to make a little pitch on mentoring, some of the greatest leaders have mentors. The president has 15 cabinet members. They're mentors, advisors. right? Wingman, wingwoman. You see that? I mean, just think, the smartest person in the world, whoever the president is that time, we say that's probably one of the smartest people in the world. Don't get political on me, right? Put any president's name you want in there. Yet they need all these cabinet members. Generals have all kinds of assistants. Well, the generals should be so smart. Why do they need people to help them? If you don't have people on your flank helping you, you're limiting yourself. Why would you do that? With all the potential people out there you could get to help. All right, how about Luke Skywalker? He had Yoda. I mean, just think about it. It's part of the fabric of our culture. There's a hero and there's a guide. You're the heroes. Who's guiding you? Who do you have? So you're limiting your hero abilities. We want you to be more heroic, and I'm giving you a map. When I interview or any people that get interviewing the millennial generation, this is one of the top 3 things, if not number 1, that they want. I want a mentor. And then I talk to boomers, and they're like, well, it doesn't seem like they want any help. Well, of course it doesn't seem like it. They're Americans. They're bravado. They're not going to be like, hey, can someone please help me because I don't know where to go? I mean, men, I'll just pick on the men. We don't even stop for directions, let alone ask for a mentor. But it's how you do it. We need to take this thing down a little bit and quit making it so huge. A mentor is one meeting, one time, one person, 1 hour. Principle of the ones. It's not, who can I get for a lifetime to be my all-perfect mentor? Take the word mentor out if you want to, right? I think it was Blake, in one of our Leadership by Design meetings here, he used the phrase friendtor. I'm like, oh, I like that. I'm going to use that. Mentor, friendtor. Make it simple. Band of brothers, yaya sisterhood. Whatever it needs to be. Just get people in your life. So this tool we'll hand out at the end. Also, I'll give you a website at the end, 4040principle.com. You can download this, 4040principle.com. And it's just some basics on how to do it, some ground rules, and some powerful questions. The questions are what throw people. Well, what would I ask someone? Really? You don't have any questions you want to ask someone that could be an advisor in your life? So here's my warning as we land this bird. If you're over 35, just be open. Just get a little opening somewhere in there. Open your mind a little bit more than maybe you're used to. Okay? I need the same message. And if you're under 35, be bold. I talk to a lot of under 35-year-olds, and it seems like you guys are just waiting for one of us to come alongside and just tell you what you're supposed to do. If you're in leadership, lead. We need you to lead us. We're expecting it. Within respect, of course. But please consider leading us. And Denzel has a great quote. If I could just read it for you. Show me a successful individual, and I will show you someone who had a real positive influence on his or her life. I don't care what station of life you're in, what kind of living you make, but if you do it, I'm sure there was someone cheering you on, showing you the way. A mentor. If I asked, and I do this in groups that are smaller, I go around and I say, hey, tell me one person's had a major impact on your life. And everybody has a story. A parent, a grandparent, a sibling, a sports coach, somebody, a teacher. And I say, well, if that's the case, why don't you have someone like that now? Because you know, after 21 years old, we have to find them, they don't find us anymore. There's just some weird shift at about 21. So go look for it. So the way it worked for me, just end with this story of how I found a mentor at 25 years old. So I've been reading a book called Up the Organization. Robert Townsend, great book. And in there it said, you know, if you want to be successful in life, get yourself some people around you that will hold you accountable, challenge you, support you, what I would call someone who's got your back, or a champion of your cause is the way I heard it put. Who do you have that's a champion of your cause? And if you don't have them, why? Do you have a good reason? So at 25, I moved from LA to Chicago, had just gotten married. My wife and I knew one person, our dry cleaner. Because in the job I had to show up with one of those starch shirts on. And I said to her one day, I said, hey, I'm looking for a dentist. Do you know anyone? She said, yeah, Ezra Chan. We were in the western suburbs of Chicago in Naperville, and we lived in this old Kohler furniture factory converted to these condos, and they had shops and apartments, and I thought, that's great. I don't even need to leave the building. So while I'm up there in a couple weeks waiting to go in and hopefully not have my teeth ripped out, he was talking in the back room about a leadership group. And I overheard, and I thought, leadership, that's interesting. That's what I'm looking for. I'm like, in the season, this guy said, just look for it and you'll find it. And it seems too easy. But you know when you buy a car and you didn't have it before, you start seeing it show up everywhere? All of a sudden, you're like, that's my car, or the one I want to buy. Same thing with this. I was looking for a leadership group. I was looking for a mentor. And I'm up there listening to this, so I'm like, man, I hope I have the courage, because I want to ask him, what is that group? But I'm scared, right? We self-sabotage. I'm like, I don't know, man, he might tell me that I can't be part of it and don't even try, it's expensive, or I don't know. We come up with these crazy things and defeat ourselves before we even try to start something good. So the hygienist comes in and she does all that and hands in your mouth and tools, and I can't really talk much. The dentist comes in, he introduces himself and where are you from, how long you've been here, and you get a few things out, and then hands in the mouth again. I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to ask him. But finally I said, I'm going to ask him right when he's done, before he walks away, because you know those dentists, man, they pop in, they pop out, and where'd that guy go? So I said, hey, do you know any, I said it so awkwardly, do you know any leadership groups I could join? He's like, what? Huh? I said, I'm sorry. I was so nervous. 25. I said, I was eavesdropping. I kind of heard you talking when I was out there reading that Highlights magazine that's only for little kids, but they're always in dentist's office. I don't know what that is. And he said, well, actually, yeah, I've got this round table of guys that are about my age. He was 45. He said, we meet every week, and we talk about a book of the month club. They're always leadership or a business book. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And I said, would I ever be able to come visit, or do you know any other groups like that? How do you join? He said, why don't you come on this Friday? I said, really? He said, yeah. You bring the donuts, though. Oh, good, I love donuts. I brought 24 donuts. This group met every Friday. For 3 years, I got to sit around at 25, all these guys about 45 that were smart and wise and not perfect. They could talk about their problems. And then the leader became a mentor of mine. Ron Knauer, I could call him today and say, Ron, can I ask you a couple questions? What was that worth? One question. How much did it cost me? 24 donuts, almost $0. What's it been worth? I can't tell you. But I've been married 30 years. That seems to be working. 3 kids, pretty happy. Career seems to work. Life's not perfect. A lot of big purpose decisions. So who do you have? Who do you have that will help you with that? And I want to leave you with 3 options. You know you can do nothing. You're going to hear a lot of speakers. And you're going to get a lot of intel. Write down one thing from each speaker that you're going to do. Because you can always do nothing. And you can say you'll do something. We know how that works. Same with me. Or you can do something. Think it, write it down, and do it, because if nothing changes, right, nothing changes. So come on, be the change. Be the change. Thank you for your time, guys.